is encouraging employees to be checking if their employer is remitting deducted tax and tonnage if need to be to avoid penalties associated with non-payment of due taxes. Wanja Wang'ondu, a supervisor at KRA's Domestic Tax Department, is encouraging taxpayers to keep checking their tax remittance status to detect cases of non-remittance and implement corrective measures. Allan Aoko is our reporter. He spoke to Wanja about tax remittance and other issues you, as a taxpayer, need to know.
Hello and welcome. If you're just joining us, this is Business Insight. My name is Allan Aoko and you're just in time for a very riveting interview. Today, we want to talk matters tax returns, and we want to also find out how it is important to you and to the country. And just to help us expound further into this topic, we have with us Wanja Wang'ondu, who is from the Domestic Tax Department at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Indeed. So, of course, viewers are very curious, and if you want to interact with us, of course, you can find us on KBC Channel 1 on all our handles, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, would you believe it? And we begin with starting with, why is filing tax returns still very important to this country at this time?
Okay, thank you. Now, the filing of the returns is not only important to the government, but you as Allan. It is when you file your returns that you are able to bring together all the incomes for the year, and you are able even to establish if your employer actually did the remission of your taxes, because you're able to see in the system, as well as it helps you know you are at what point even in your business. And then to the taxman, it is an internal control in a way, because what was deducted from you by your employer, you now get an avenue of finding out. So the taxman is able to see that whatever the employers were deducting, if it agrees with whatever the employees are doing the declaration for. Plus, it's the only avenue that the taxman, being we're in a self-assessment regime in our country. So it's the only avenue that the taxman is able to get the full information about your incomes as well.
Of course, these questions come at the back of the deadline that is quickly approaching. This is the time when, Kenyans have it at the back of their mind that they should file their tax returns. But just to get a feel of where we are at this point, how many filed their tax returns by June 30th, 2020, perhaps?
By June 30th last year, yes, we had 4.4 million who had filed.
And is this nil returns? Is it possible to segment the nil and the other segments, or that's cumulative figure?
Yes, that's the cumulative figure. Yes, and maybe in the next meeting I'll be able to give you the breakdown. Yes, but you actually notice most of the Kenyans have incomes. Yes, most of the Kenyans do have incomes.
And that's a growth. Are we looking at a trajectory that is going upwards at this time?
Yes, in fact, the year before, we had 3.6. So the number actually grew from 3.6 to 4.44. So it was such a good growth, and that is on-time filing, the people who had actually filed on time. So there are a few who were a bit late, but I'm highly encouraging all Kenyans to file our returns on time to avoid filing late. In fact, filing starts from 1st of January, and it's still ongoing. I know a few of us may have delayed in filing because there's a document that we need, maybe from the insurance to claim the insurance relief, maybe the mortgage document, or maybe there are some accounts that are not yet ready. But I urge all Kenyans, I want to state that for individuals and for partnerships, our year ends in that 1st December. And so what that means, we ought to pay any taxes that we did not pay within the year 2020 on or before the 30th of April. So today's 20th. We have 10 days to ensure we pay that balance of tax. So let us ensure we file on time.
In fact, now that you brought that up, we'll also talk about, of course, the repercussions or the challenges, or rather the penalties of filing late, just for awareness and the sake of our viewers. But I would also like to ask, that trajectory you've said from about 3.6 million to 4 point something million, what informed this growth? Is it technology, or what kind of advancement did you deploy to improve this undertaking?
There are a number of factors that influence the filing of the returns uptake, and one of them is information. A person who has information is empowered, and that's why the taxman has taken up the ideal of ensuring everybody gets the information. I'm sure you have already received an SMS asking you to file. And if you have not yet received it, this week will not end before you receive one if you have not yet filed. Another thing is, last year, we noted the use of technology increased. By the lockdown aspect, you noted that very many people embraced online. And so even the filing. But then we even noted the number of people who seek support from our offices went down last year. Look at the increase from 3.6 to 4.4 who filed on time, but the numbers were very low, the numbers were visiting our offices. So it's a clear indication that the step-by-step guide we have put on our website and the simplification of our systems that we have done is helping a big number of people, and the public have highly embraced that. I also wish to note, technologically, we now have a name service app whereby, Alan, you don't need to visit any office. You just need to go to your phone, download the M-Service app, and file all your nail returns there. Would the nail returns be relating to income tax, pay-as-you-earn, value-added tax, rental income? And by the way, for rental income and for turnover tax, since it's quite simplified, you can do everything up to paying on your phone.
Yes. So the new application, which of course Kenya has a very high penetration of the mobile phone, it's something that has now been refined, and therefore one can just download the application, or what are the steps that someone can take to?
You just download the application, and then once you download the application, if you don't have a PIN, you are able to get a PIN as well through the M-Service app. And like in your case, you already have a PIN. All you need to do is you log in with your PIN. Once you put your PIN details, then you just get to the part for the filing, if it's nil. But for persons who have income, I would highly encourage, let's use iTax. Yes, let's use iTax. But for the people who are doing nil returns or the rental income or turnover tax returns, those ones can comfortably use the M-Service app.
Of course, some of us would be curious to know, where does this technological advancement go from here, now that we are drawing lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic and detaching ourselves from a lot of physical contact and, filling your banking halls? Where does this technology advancement go from here?
So now, over the years, we have been working on our systems, and more so, we want to get to a place that every Kenyan is able to file from wherever. And more so, as I've talked about the turnover tax returns and the rental income, initially, you could only use iTax. So we are simplifying our forms. We are also simplifying our systems and everything else because we want a common mwananchi to be able to use our systems with ease. We get very positive reports about persons who are filing for turnover tax and who are filing for rental income. By the way, it will not even take you a minute to do that filing. It's as easy as, do you know your income? How much rental income have you got in the given month? Which month was it? That one the system will populate. Then you just put the amount of rental income that you received. The system computes, you finish filing, and the system computes the tax for you. So that's where we want to get to. In fact, from July this year, we are embarking on a simplification process whereby we simplify our laws, we simplify our systems, we simplify our forms. We basically make everything very simple for our taxpayers. Yes, we are working on it from July this year.
Because also, of course, does this mean you've also cured what others would say traffic? You know, many Kenyans, the last minute jam on the systems. Your systems are able now to even withstand the kind of traffic that comes with filing returns at the very last minute?
Yes. In fact, for the last 2 years, we have not had any problems on 30th June. So even this year, our servers we are prepared for any numbers that may turn up.
Very robust as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, of course, the purpose of this interview is just to as well bring it down to basics, because, you know, issues to do with taxes, many find it very difficult and the jargon in there is very harsh. Mm-hmm. Let's start very basic as well. Who exactly are to file these returns on the 30th of June, by the 30th of June? Mm-hmm. Who is eligible?
Now, all individual persons, all partnerships, and all limited companies whose year end on 31st December are the parties that are required to file the returns by the 30th of June. Notice this. When you get a PIN number, there's an obligation that is added on your PIN. If the obligation that's on your PIN is income tax, then you are the person who is required to file. Yes.
And we also understand that apparently some Kenyans do call in to file their tax returns. Mm-hmm. They file their annual tax returns and a repetitive exercise on the account that their employers filed the pay as you earn, of course, monthly returns during the year of income. Do they have to now do a repetition, or what's happening there?
Okay. Now notice this. Our employers only know about one source of our income, and that is the income from employment. And by the way, it may not even necessarily be all the income from employment, because your employer will basically know what they pay you. You may have part-time employment, and you may also be having other incomes. You may be having business income. You may be having farming income, rental income, commissions, and any other income that you may be having that's taxable. So the employer just makes a declaration to say that these were my employees in the given month. I paid them this money, I deducted this tax, and this is what I remitted. And now, so Alan, you're coming up and then saying, you get the P9 from employment, and then you prepare simple accounts for all your other incomes. And then that's what now you come and do a declaration on, of the employment income plus all the other incomes that you have that are taxable.
So that's why it's important.
Yes.
Okay. Something also that is very pertinent to our viewers, especially at this time of difficulties. Last year we had, of course, some kind of tax relief measures that we had due to the COVID-19 misfortunes. Will we see some kind of relief as we go and file our tax returns that have rolled over due to the effects of the pandemic that we're experiencing right now?
Mm-hmm. So now, last year, from April, as you can remember, there was such a good move. The people whose income was up to 24,000 in a month, they became exempt from tax. You know, initially, it used to be the persons whose income was up to 13,486. In addition, the list of the taxes were also reduced. And so we enjoyed that benefit last year because with effect from January, it was done away with. And so since we were enjoying the benefit last year, when we will be filing, we'll be able to see that effect. Yes, so the reduction was there, and we actually did enjoy. So at the filing point, since it's something that we already enjoy, we will not enjoy it per se at the filing point, but we enjoyed last year.
Yeah, there's usually a misunderstanding there that if you're filing, maybe they are getting some kind of new rebates, but it is something that has already occurred.
Yes, yes. Filing, you are basically declaring what happened last year. So we enjoyed last year, but now we are filing in relation to that year. Yes.
And the other question that will come to mind now then is, as we bring in all these categories of taxpayers, what exactly is KRA doing? How does it force PIN holders without an income to file a nil return? How does that really work? How do you manage to do this?
Okay. So, Alan, first I would wish to say, by looking at Alan today, am I able to say Alan has an income or Alan does not have an income? No. And also, you will notice there are people that in a given financial year or in a given year of income, they may have an income, and then in the other year, they don't. And so the law recognizes an early return as a return. And so it's now upon you to make the declaration and say that if this year, 2019, these were my incomes. 2020, these were my incomes. But maybe years to come, we will get to that point that we will be, our data and our systems, everything will be quite streamlined, and maybe our banking systems and everything else, and we will get to a point where maybe some parties may be exempted from filing. But as it is right now, all of us are required to, even the person who is making an early return, because as I've told you, an early return is recognized by law to be a return as well.
Interesting. So we've talked about the nil return taxpayer. Let's talk a bit about the employed taxpayer. How does an employed person go about perhaps reporting? You know, this is something that has occurred over and over, and we've had people reporting, coming to us and saying, oh, my employer has not been remitting tax, has not been doing this and that with my taxes. How do they go about going about this without even incurring the penalties that may come? Because out of a fault of not of their own, they find that unfortunately the employer was not doing their part in this filing. How do they remedy this?
So, are you in employment? Has the employer given you the P9 document? Then, if you have that P9 document from your employer, and when you are filing, you realize that your employer had not remitted the tax, so that the system tells you're supposed to pay any tax, or even in the course of the year, you know, the credits, once your employer pays, that money is credited to your account. So anytime you log in, you're actually able to tell if your employer remits or not. If you notice that your employer is not remitting, then just with your P9, send your P9 to call center at kra.go.ke and state that your employer deducts taxes, but you haven't seen any credit in the system. And then we will be able to get back to you. And if it's an issue to do with the employer has maybe difficulties in filing or something like that, we will be able to offer the support that's needed to your employer. But if we notice it's something else, that your employer is actually evading tax, then we'll be able to take the proper measures on your employer, and no action will be taken on you, because in your case, the employer actually deducted the tax. Yes.
Let me now throw in a spanner in the works, maybe something a bit of a thinker there. We have a lot of SMEs in this country,
Yes.
And we find many of them fail. Some of them are not successful in their endeavors. You find that someone has started a company and they're trying to make it grow. But of course, since they're registered and they're legitimate, of course, they have to pay the tax. But unfortunately, it just so happens that the company doesn't even make any sales in its first year or in the many months it has been open. How will they redeem themselves with KRA if they have not been making any sales and they have not even filed taxes of the first year of the first few months they've been in existence? How do they redeem themselves with KRA? What are the repercussions of this?
Okay. Well, so one of the things I guide our taxpayers on, it's good to know the tax obligation that you're having, because look at it this way. The taxman cannot push you to go and make the money. You get it? Because it's not under your control in getting the business or making the sales and all that. In fact, when you go to open your business every morning, it's by faith that you will have clients and that you'll do big business. So in any case, that the tender you are expecting, the businesses you are expecting, they do not pick as you expected, then you have a way out. The way out is this. Ensure you do a proper declaration of the state as it is. Meaning, if there's no sales, do a declaration indicating there were no sales. Then, number 2, if you close down a business, then do not stay with an obligation that you don't need. Deregister that obligation. Because I've come across people who closed businesses 5 years ago, but they never deregistered the PIN. So let's deregister if we have closed a business line. But it's an issue to do with our businesses getting low and all that. Let's ensure we adhere to the filing guidelines.
Thank you very much. Of course, this is a conversation that we can't just have in 30 minutes or in one day. It's a conversation that always continues, especially when it comes to complex matters of tax. And we appreciate that you are here to tell us more about it. There you have it. We've been talking about filing your annual tax returns. And I hope you have been enriched. Of course, you can, engage us on this topic, ask your questions on our handles, KBC Channel 1. My name is Allan Aoko. We have been speaking with Wanja Wang'ondu, who is from the Domestic Tax Department at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Feel free to interact with us online. And with that, we leave you now. See you next time. Goodbye.